Hello, I'm Richard Farrow, CEO of APMG International, and it's my pleasure to introduce this episode of the APMG Partner Spotlight, a platform for key leaders to present their innovative solutions for today's business challenges. In this fast-evolving digital landscape, an adaptive approach to digital governance is imperative for an organization's survival and success. I'd like to welcome our guest, Rick Lemieux, co-founder and chief program officer of the Digital Value Management System Institute. Today, Rick will guide you through the Institute's unique approach to managing organizational cyber resilience and digital business risk. Rick will provide a deep dive into the NIST Cybersecurity Framework and the Digital Value Management System. Please stay tuned for a live Q&A segment and submit your questions for Rick during the main presentation.
Hi, my name is Rick Lemieux. I am the co-founder and chief program officer for the DVMS Institute. I have over 40 years of passion and experience creating and delivering solutions designed to provide the digital outcomes expected by executive management, government regulators, and operational stakeholders. In 2015, the Tech 10 Awards identified me as one of the top 5 IT entrepreneurs in the state of Rhode Island for developing innovative training and mentoring solutions. The Institute's NIST Cybersecurity Framework, APMG accredited publications and certified training programs teach organizations of any size, scale, or complexity a holistic and adaptive overlay approach to protecting its digital business value by managing and continually innovating its organizational cyber resilience through its culture. This new adaptive approach to digital business governance ensures that organizations of any size, scale, or complexity can thrive in today's volatile digital marketplace. The scheme teaches organizations a fast-track approach to operationalizing a NIST Cybersecurity Framework program across an enterprise and its supply chain to enable organizational cyber risk management. It also teaches a holistic and adaptive approach to operationalizing a digital value management system across an enterprise and a supply chain to enable organizational cyber resilience by connecting digital system outcomes to organizational culture. The digital landscape has fundamentally changed how businesses operate, compete, and engage with customers in today's digital marketplace. The shift has brought new risks and challenges that call for an adaptive and strategic approach to protecting the value delivered by digital assets. Digital assets include data, intellectual property, customer information, and technological capabilities, and are vital to today's digital enterprises. Protecting the value delivered by those assets is not just a matter of compliance, but a strategic necessity to ensure that digital business performance and reliability objectives are met. Governments, CEOs, and boards must acknowledge the importance of safeguarding the performance and reliability of digital assets to ensure long-term sustainability and success. Organizations prioritizing digital protection can gain the trust of their stakeholders, clients, and investors by demonstrating their commitment to safeguarding those digital assets that underpin the critical infrastructure in the global economy. Conversely, neglecting investments in protection can lead to severe consequences, such as disruption to digital business operations, ransom demands, fines, lawsuits, regulatory sanctions, remediation costs, customer satisfaction issues, and potentially human lives. The traditional cybersecurity paradigm, often focused on preventing external threats, is increasingly insufficient in today's digital age. As organizations navigate the rapid evolution of technology, they must shift their perspective from merely protecting assets to actively preserving the performance and availability of those assets. By recognizing the strategic potential of digital value and aligning it with broader business objectives, organizations can create a resilient and innovative digital ecosystem that is underpinned by a culture trained to identify, classify, and mitigate organizational risks that could impact that value. The Institute's NIST Cybersecurity Framework Fast Track model represents a phased approach to adapting the NIST framework across an enterprise and its supply chain to manage organizational cyber risk. The Institute's digital value management system represents a holistic and adaptive approach to cyber resilience by connecting digital system outcomes to organizational culture. The DVMS Institute programs were created to address a need identified in multiple industry research reports on why adaptive digital governance is needed to deal with today's ever-changing and evolving threat landscape. The research states that traditional command and control-based IT governance is obsolete as it fails to address the adaptive governance needs of today's dynamic digital business world. Adaptive governance enables flexible and nimble decision-making processes that help an organization respond quickly to opportunities while continuously addressing investments, risk, and value. Adaptive governance allows organizations the flexibility to apply different governance approaches to specific digital business scenarios. A significant NIST CSF 2.0 framework update specific to cybersecurity governance has normalized cybersecurity as a required boardroom function. The NIST Cybersecurity 2.0 was published and now includes a govern as a key domain, which acknowledges from this leading standards body the importance of the boardroom's role in protecting the organization's business value and its underpinning dependent business systems. The 31 key governance principles or processes included in this CSF 2.0 are critical to normalizing how boards do this. Urza Ortiz, an independent cybersecurity oversight and strategy advocate, said, if boards continue following the same reactive path, there's little hope for meaningful change. Governance systems must evolve from passive risk management to active drivers of business resilience and digital growth. Directors must guide digital and cyber strategy, not just oversee incidents. The Institute's certification training programs are the only accredited, assured, and recognized training programs that teach organizations of any size, scale, or complexity an adaptive, holistic approach to managing organizational cyber risk and resilience by connecting the digital business outcomes to the organization's culture. The programs teach organizations how to assess their culture, their security controls, and their skills to understand the current state of the organization. The organization then uses that data to build an adaptive governance and cultural system capable of identifying, classifying, and mitigating the cyber risks that could impact an organization's digital business ecosystem. The programs also teach implementers how to design and implement a cyber risk and resilience management program that is fit for use within the enterprise. These programs also teach auditors how to ensure that the program is fit for purpose and aligned with industry and government regulation. The program graduates include governments and commercial enterprises from across the globe, including many from the financial services, healthcare, energy, utilities, retail, higher education, entertainment, and enterprise consulting market segments. Let me talk a little bit about the courses themselves. The DVMS Digital Business Risk Awareness course introduces business leaders and all of its employees to the fundamentals of digital business, its risk, and their role as part of a culture capable of identifying and mitigating cyber risk. This accredited non-certification course includes the fundamentals of adopting the NIST Cybersecurity Framework publication, a certificate of completion, and a digital badge. The awareness course is followed by the NIST Cybersecurity Framework Foundation Certification Training course, and it introduces IT, cybersecurity, and business professionals to the fundamentals of a NIST Cybersecurity Framework and the Institute's digital value management system. This accredited certification course includes the fundamentals of adopting the NIST Cybersecurity Framework publication, a practitioner's guide to adapting the NIST Cybersecurity Framework to your business, and a certificate of completion, an exam voucher, and a certification badge. That course is followed by the DVMS NIST Cybersecurity Framework 853 Practitioner Certification Training course, and it teaches IT, cybersecurity, and business professionals how to build a NIST Cybersecurity Framework and digital value management system based on NIST Special Publication 853. This accredited Certification course includes a practitioner's guide to adapting the NIST Cybersecurity Framework publication, a certificate of completion, an exam voucher, and a certification badge. That's followed by our new recently released publication, Thriving on the Edge of Chaos, a holistic approach to organizational cyber resilience. This is a must-read for leaders regardless of organization size or sector, and for those who seek to master the art of navigating volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity in a digital ecosystem. This book transcends technical disciplines, offers a universal framework for fostering adaptability, driving innovation, and building resilience in a rapidly changing digital ecosystem. At its heart, the book highlights the critical role of organizational culture as the glue that binds strategy, leadership, and execution. This ensures sustainable digital resilience. Through actionable insights and real-world examples, the publication equips leaders with the knowledge to embrace complexity, harness disruption, and confidently manage a digital world that demands constant reinvention. Rather than offering a rigid framework, Thriving on the Edge of Chaos introduces an adaptable overlay, the Digital Value Management System. This system is designed to fit any organization and foster sustainable growth. This book is an essential resource for cybersecurity professionals and leaders ready to thrive in a fast-changing digital landscape. In today's hyper-connected and rapidly evolving digital landscape, organizations face increasingly complex and persistent cyber threats. Therefore, managing cyber risk and building resilience is no longer a mere technical concern, but a critical imperative for organization survival and success. Adaptive digital governance models are essential to achieve this. These models enable organizations to move beyond static, compliance-driven approaches and embrace a dynamic risk-based strategy. By fostering agility and adaptability, these governance frameworks allow organizations to continuously monitor, assess, and respond to emerging threats in real time. This includes quickly adjusting security policies, controls, and procedures to mitigate vulnerabilities and minimize the impact of cyber attacks. Furthermore, adaptive governance promotes a holistic view of cyber risk, integrating it into the broader organizational risk management framework. This ensures that cybersecurity considerations are embedded in strategic decision-making, resource allocation, and operational processes. Ultimately, by embracing adaptive digital governance, organizations can cultivate a culture of cyber resilience, empowering them to effectively navigate the ever-changing threat landscape and safeguard their critical assets. To find out more, you can visit the DVMS Institute at www.dvmsinstitute.com for free resources, videos, and further details on the overlay model mentioned in today's presentation.
So thanks, Rick. Great overview, and welcome everybody to the live Q&A. So we're going to try and address as many questions as we can in this segment. We can see some questions coming in. Just before we get to the first one, Rick, there's a cyber case over this side of the pond in the UK at the moment that you may be aware of. It's one of our major retailers, Marks and Spencer's, and they've I think their online ordering system and app orders have been offline for the best part of a week. They've had, I think, 700 million or something wiped off the stock price. So I don't know if you've had a chance to analyse that one and see if that's fallen foul to the pitfalls that you often see.
Yes, yeah, Mark, I have. In fact, I did a little post on it yesterday up on social media, basically pointing out that organizations, they can no longer be surprised by these things. If they don't make the investments or they don't have the visibility they need to truly understand or see risk that could impact the business before they impact the business, then this is exactly what they're going to experience. Okay, I mean, I don't know the particulars about Marks and Spencer's and how their world is put together, but based on the catastrophic results that have happened as a result of this breach, that tells me that they they probably were being, reactive versus proactive in how they identify risk and be able to classify them and mitigate them. So I think going forward, once they're able to recover from this disaster, which I'm sure will cost them a lot of money, this is something that they seriously need to consider, which is part of what we talked about in today's webinar.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rick. So let's turn it to our first question then. Let's see what we've got.
Basically, the question is, why is it essential for all digital service providers to embed cyber resiliency into their offerings? This is a great question. Thank you for whoever contributed it, because this is something that is near and dear to me and an area that I've been focused on for quite a while. Because when we first started on this journey, our focus was really about how to help enterprises, solve their risk and resiliency problem. But as we dug deeper into the problem, we realized that it isn't just about the enterprise, but it's about the suppliers that the enterprise works with as well. So in other words, all digital service providers, whether they be software as a service or SaaS companies, whether they be cloud providers, whether they be MSPs, managed service providers, they all need to bake cyber resilience into their offerings, because when they come into your world and interconnect with each other to provide a digital system that allows you to deliver your programs and your services, without resilience or without the ability to actively adapt to changes in the threat landscape and really understand what's happening in their portion of this digital ecosystem, there's likely to be a problem. All right, so it isn't just enterprises themselves if they have their own internal homegrown systems that they utilize to deliver services, but those who also work with cloud providers, SaaS providers, and managed service providers who also need to have those same capabilities as well. So it comes back to creating a standardized approach that everyone can operate from and learn from. That's the only way we're going to be able to get ahead of this, or at least be able to manage these daily business disruptions in a way that they don't impact our business, or in the case of Marks and Spencer's, shut down the business. And so that's why it's important and essential for all service providers, whether they be corporate enterprise accounts running digital service networks, or working with the partners that they combine their offering with to extend that reach, or extend those services through cloud providers, through SaaS providers, and through managed service providers as well.
Brilliant. Thanks, Rick. Let's go on to our second question. So can you share more about the people and teams that power a NIST Cybersecurity Framework digital value management system?
Absolutely. This is another area I spent a lot of time on as well. And in fact, I wrote a little article about it a couple of days ago, and it's really starting to catch on fire on LinkedIn. So basically, if you look at organizations, they're really built around three layers, right? There's a strategic layer, there's a governance layer, and there's an operational layer. Each one of those layers, if you will, provides a different set of capabilities in order for an organization to do everything from design the services to deliver the services. In fact, the strategic layer is where the executive team gets involved in establishing, the rules, if you will, or the strategy. All right. So in other words, this is our appetite for risk. So when services are built and designed and deployed, they have to fall within these boundaries. That strategic guidance coming from the executive and the board of directors is then translated into policy, okay, or at the governance level. So that's where the leadership team comes into play, and basically establishing policies for the business, and then delivering those policies, through leadership down into the operational layer of the business, where they actually enable capabilities to support, the delivery of those policies, or the management of the outcomes of those policies. So basically, if you think about it from a people point of view or a team point of view, everyone's involved in the delivery of cyber risk management and cyber resilience management. And it's really important for those three layers to be interconnected with each other and constantly communicating and collaborating. All right. So in this cybersecurity framework, digital value management system, which is what we teach organizations in our classroom, provides the fabric that links all those environments together through a set of models that we have built into the DVMS system. I'll give you an example. The CX model is built around what we call the minimum viable capabilities an organization must have in place to manage risk and resiliency. Those capabilities include governance, assurance, basically the policies and the ability to measure and determine whether actually we're meeting the outcomes that the policies are designed to deliver. The ability to plan services, the ability to design services, the ability to deploy or execute on those services, the ability to change those services. Change is probably one of the most important capabilities that organizations need to have in place because change has become the norm. The threat landscape is changing so fast that your business needs to see the threat coming and change before it becomes a problem to the business. So change is a very critical function. And last but not least is the innovate capability, meaning that the organization always needs to be innovating. Okay, so as it's creating new services, it's not only clearly defining the value of those services to customers and stakeholders, but it's also protecting those services because those services have value, and value that's not protected is not value. All right, it's really, really important. And then they need to look at the delivery phase of that. How are we going to deliver this service, and what new risk are we going to be exposed to? So if we're going to team with a cloud provider or a SaaS provider or an MSP, we have to look at their world as well. And creating a standardized approach allow us to do that across the entire ecosystem. It allows us to measure and get the data that we need to continually make changes to that environment to ensure our safety and the delivery and the value of those services we're responsible for.
Great, thanks, Rick. Let's see what we have next. Does the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, DVMS, enable digital service providers to reduce operational costs?
Yeah, another great question. It's absolutely. Because if you think about it, if you live in a world of chaos, as the title of our third book is Thriving on the Edge of Chaos. That's how basically every digital business is operating right now. It's right on the edge of heading into disaster, right? So they've got to be able to, basically, navigate through that minefield and basically see things in advance and take care of them in advance, as I mentioned in response to the previous question. If you do that, okay, you can save yourself a lot of money, and organizations can save a lot in the operational cost area because they've got a standardized approach that allows them to stay on the rails. Because every time they go off the rails, it will cost them a lot of money. It could cost them fines, and based on being in violations of the regulations. It could cost them lawsuits. It could even cost them lives, depending upon what kind of organization they are. So there's a lot of operational costs that can be reduced based on having a standardized approach to managing or identifying risk and then establishing the resiliency to support the need for the business to continue to stay in an operational mode, even in the middle of an attack.
Great stuff. Thanks, Rick. Next question is, how can this program benefit small to medium-sized businesses and the MSPs that support them?
Another great question. I know I keep saying that, but they're all really good ones. The small business world has been kind of ignored, when it comes to risk and resiliency. All right. And a lot of these small businesses don't really understand anything about digital, if you will, or IT or any of those technical things that others in this business know well. So they tend to rely on managed service providers who can come in and provide them a turnkey package that not only includes all of the technology and software to drive their business, but all of the support services, including security and resiliency as part of that. Okay. So I think it's really important for MSPs to have the capabilities to enable resiliency and risk management for small businesses, something they don't have to worry about. Now, when I say that, the small business is still responsible for any outcomes that happens to the small business. So the small business, while they can use MSPs to help them deliver the outcomes to run their business, they ultimately are responsible. So they at least need to have someone on their team who's trained and certified to work with the MSP to ensure the MSP completely understands their requirement and also to verify that the MSP is actually delivered on that requirement. Okay, and that includes providing a resilient capability that we talk about today. So I think that's where, to the question, it's really the combination of the small business becoming aware and knowledgeable about digital and its risk and what they need to be doing to protect their business, and then working with MSPs to deliver that capability and those outcomes.
Great stuff. Thanks, Rick. Next question. What are the steps to setting up a DVMS training academy?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think it all depends on the size of the business. Okay, so if a medium to large size business, really commits themselves to doing what we talk about in our program, we believe it's beneficial for them to establish, their own internal, DVMS training academy where they can deliver the certification training programs we talked about earlier. The reason that's important is that, if you think about it, managing risk and resiliency are core and mission critical to the business, especially a digital business, or any business that is supporting digital services, which is about every business on the planet these days. All right. So it's really important for them to not only train their organization, but to continually train and update them as things change in the threat landscape. The other thing is, by having an internal training academy, they can add things to the training that are directly related to their business. So we had one customer who basically made the internal commitment to putting this program in place. They decided they wanted to build an internal training academy to support that. They ran a little program that basically was sent out to the employees that if they wanted to be part of the core team in this training academy, they would have to submit a paper to management as to why they should be picked over others for that particular program. So this particular company selected 100 of their employees to go through an intense training program that allowed them to become practitioners or masters in this particular area. They also worked in developing additional curriculum for the training programs that came from the Institute, so they could make the training very specific to their company and allow it to connect much quicker with the audience. It was a great success. They did the initial operation in one of the company's divisions, and they then promoted it to the other divisions, and the other divisions followed. So I think it's a really good idea for organizations to at least consider, standing up their own academy. Most organizations today already have some sort of internal training capabilities, or maybe even already partnered up with a third-party provider to do that for them. So the DVMS program should be incorporated in that as well, so they can deliver the outcomes that I mentioned, by setting up the academy.
Great. Thanks, Rick. Let's see what we have next. Are those materials from DVMS translated currently into Portuguese?
Not at this point in time. They're only available in English right now. We do have a publisher that we work with, and they have the potential to translate it into any language beyond English, which is in our plan. If there's an opportunity that requires it to be translated into Portuguese or any other language, folks can reach out to me directly, and we've got a process on how to handle that and do that, in a much quicker format than it is right now. So if anybody, if there's someone who's got, a market that they want to service, that they think that translating the materials, beyond one person, I have to say that because it'd be kind of challenging to do it for one person. But if we did it for a group of people or a group of companies, then it's definitely doable, and doable within a reasonable time frame.
Great. Let's see what we have next. Any materials connecting a Zero Trust framework with our initiatives, as well as the DVMS 0x NIST Cybersecurity Framework with the convergence to cyber resilience approach?
Yeah, that's got a lot of words in it, but I think I understand the question. Yes, it's interesting. I was doing some research the other day, and I ran across the Zero Trust document from the United States Department of Defense. And, I've always thought I never really spent much time studying zero trust until probably the last couple of months or so, because someone told me that, I was thinking zero trust was kind of technology and all this other stuff. I know it's access controls and all this other stuff, but I never really viewed it as anything other than that. But as I dug deeper into it, it's basically I call it a framework, that basically allows you to understand. It's all risk based, right? It's about managing risk. It really is. It's just that, it's really kind of the ultimate in managing risk. So the DVMS and the NIST Cybersecurity Framework fit right into that model. In fact, the DVMS itself, in terms of its capability around the MVC that I mentioned earlier, and being able to identify, classify and mitigate risk before they become problems, is one of the zero trust concepts. So I think from a zero trust point of view, if you're looking to design zero trust into your environment, the NIST Cybersecurity Framework Digital Value Management System is a set of capabilities that you can utilize to embed some of those capabilities into your environment, because it's all about risk and resilience. And I think the DVMS fits very well into that world.
Great stuff. Thanks, Rick. So can you comment on the overlays capability to accommodate third-party and fourth-party service provision to a customer?
Yeah, no, absolutely. The real beauty of the DVMS overlay is that it doesn't care what frameworks or methods or standards you've already invested in. In fact, it will make those things better. Okay. And this also includes, any third party, fourth party services, because it looks at everything, right? And then it builds that overlay to adapt to all of those capabilities. The first thing it actually does is it identifies any gaps in those services or in those standards or best practices that need to be mitigated in order for the DVMS to operate properly. So it actually goes in, the first thing it does is it cleans up everything you've got out there that isn't, configured correctly or designed correctly, to deliver the secure, resilient outcomes that we've been talking about. Then what it does is that once it identifies and those gaps are mitigated, it interconnects all those systems as an operating system. In fact, some people told us that we have invented a cyber resilience operating system. My two developers are a little leery about saying that, but I'm more than happy to say it because I think it makes sense. It's true. Because once this operating system is in place, it allows you to deal with all of the risk in real time. And like I said, it doesn't look backward like, old GRC static, governance policies when it looks forward. And it's identifying and it's classifying and allowing you to mitigate risk as you're creating programs or increasing the value of existing programs. So all of these things fit together as a system, and it completely incorporates all aspects of your supply chain as well.
Brilliant. Thanks, Rick. Next question. Does DVMS intend to offer an organisational certification to assure that the NIST Cybersecurity Framework is in place and aligned with best practice rather than just NCSP individuals?
Yeah, that's a great question. When we started this journey, we were very much individually focused, and we still offer, individual level certifications. But as we continue to roll out the program, especially with our third book, Thriving on the Edge of Chaos, a holistic approach to organizational cyber resilience, we basically are establishing the new standard, the new organizational standard for resiliency, cyber resiliency. Okay. Now, when I think about it from an organizational certification, this is not something the DVMS can do by itself. Because remember what I said earlier, organizations, develop their strategy, and that strategy gets translated into governance policies and then into operational capabilities. Okay. That strategy includes, the rules, if you will. And the rules, the way you operationalize the rules is through security controls. So these are controls that come from documents or publications from NIST, like NIST 853, NIST 800-171, comes from ISO, from 27001, comes from COBIT, it comes from whatever you're using within your organization. Those are the controls that can identify. There's actually
framework called the Secure Controls Framework. It's an organization that has put together this really impressive publication, if you will, that lays out all of the different types of controls that you need or that you might need to have in place to be compliant with government regulations. And it makes it real easy to figure out how to do that across multiple things. You might be operating with ISO here and NIST over here and something else over there. So it makes it real easy, right? When you combine that with what the DVMS does together, that allows an organization to be assessed at the organizational level and certified that they have the capability to support the controls and they have the capability to support resilience, which, by the way, is a requirement in all international cybersecurity regulations, including DORA, NIST, SEC, SAMA, SAKI. There's a whole bunch of them. Okay. The other thing is that there are different maturity models that organizations can certify against. All right. So SCF, or the Secure Controls Framework, is one of them, right? Another one is called High Trust. High Trust was born in the healthcare industry. I'm not sure how far deployed they are internationally, but in the United States, most hospitals are, or at least they're trying to become High Trust certified. And High Trust is interesting because it was built primarily to service the regulation of HIPAA, which is the protection of personal information in the healthcare industry. So they do a really good job of protecting the data. I think they're trying to expand that to include the resiliency piece as well. So that's one maturity model that you could certify against. Another one is C2M2, which is developed by the U.S. Department of Energy for the energy sector. So long answer to a short question, but basically, yes, we can work with or other capabilities that the organization has to support their security controls, like the NIST framework as an example, to then put together an organizational certification showing not only their customers that they've made a commitment to protecting data and to protecting the resiliency and value of the business, okay, but they can also use that capability or those capabilities to go to their insurance companies to buy cyber insurance policies to mitigate the risk that they don't know about. All right, that would allow them to get favorable rates and also provide coverage for things that they don't know about, because it's impossible for organizations to know about every possible scenario. So you try to cover as many as you can and you insure what you can't.
Great stuff. Thanks, Rick. We're getting close to our time, so I think we've got time for another 2, maybe 3 questions. So let's see what the next one is. Do you have any examples of organisations who have taken the training, and what are the benefits of taking the training?
Yeah, we've been doing this for over 10 years, and we're on the 4th revision of our product. Our first revision, and I'll be careful not to reveal names here because obviously need to protect organizational privacy and so on. But my first 2 customers were a very large manufacturer of automobiles, and my second one was a very large insurance company who insures, a large population here in the U.S. And so it was interesting because this was 10 years ago when the NIST framework was brand new. It was probably, the ink was probably still wet on the paper, but they got on it early. They adopted it early. One was a financial services company in the insurance space, and they were told by regulators that this was going to become a requirement. So they jumped on it early. The other one was moving into electric vehicles, smart vehicles, and wanted to ensure that, that this was embedded in their design process. Once again, the creation, the protection, and the delivery of that value in the context of a smart vehicle. After that, it got really interesting because as the framework became more well-known and as the problem became worse in the marketplace, organizations started to take this more seriously. So the first was, for us, for a very large opportunity was an international government who made a commitment to the NIST framework and basically, was requiring that all of their agencies, if you will, get their people trained and certified, as well as all their contractors who worked with them. So that was really interesting. And for them, it was a 2-phase process. Phase 1 was the adoption of the NIST Cybersecurity Framework and its controls to basically put in place the ability to identify and manage risk, and then obviously move on to the DVMS after that to create resiliency. And then we started to really see a lot of the top 5 consulting companies that work with these customers get their organizations trained so they can advise customers on how to go about, doing this for their particular organization. So we've pretty much have seen requirements from all the critical infrastructures, especially the energy infrastructure. We actually have a case study up on our website that was done by one of our partners right after the Colonial Pipeline incident here in the United States, which shut down gas distribution on the East Coast. TSA, the Transportation Security Administration, issued new policies that all energy companies needed to follow after that incident. And this gentleman went through our training because he works with a bunch of energy companies who needed to become compliant very, very fast. And there's a case study on the website that talks about that, okay? We've worked with the electrical grid suppliers. We have actually trained over 300 auditors who audit the electrical grid for reliability and also for outcomes, which is what the NIST framework delivers. And so it's continuing to grow at a very dramatic clip. Because we kind of thought this what would happen. It took 10 years, pretty much like any new market that gets developed. But I think for us, it was really about how critical and how devastating these attacks are. And so organizations, a lot of things have changed from 10 years ago. There are now very strong, stringent, regulations in place. These regulations also hold people responsible for the decisions that they've made or that they didn't make. So the rules are changing at the regulatory level, which are forcing organizations to take this more seriously, let alone they're taking it more seriously themselves. Because I feel really bad for the retailer in the UK who's sitting there right now, not feeling really good about what's happening to them. And so I think no one wants to be the next story that comes out on the internet about being breached.
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult shareholder meeting for the M&S hierarchy.
Very much so.
Let's squeeze one final question in before we wrap up. So how often does the framework change or get updated? Is it traded once and then you need a regular refresher?
No, it's interesting. The NIST Cybersecurity Framework just went through an update. So since I've been involved with it from the original release, it went from 1.0 to 1.1 and now to 2.0. 1.1 was kind of like a minor update, like software, right? But 2.0 was a substantial update. In fact, with 2.0, they introduced the function of governance, which for the life of me I could never figure out why they didn't do that from the beginning. Because if you don't have rules, how do you know what to build? All right. So they did that. NIST did a great job of listening to, the feedback they got from folks like the Institute and others who've been doing this for a long time. And I think they did a great job. I don't think we're going to see another significant update on the framework for quite some time, if at all. Okay. Because I think, remember, the framework basically tells you the functions you need to have in place to manage risk as a business. So that's the governance function I talked about, the ability to identify, to protect, to detect, and to respond and recover from a cyber attack. I call these, IT functions, if you will. The organization needs to have these capabilities in place. It doesn't tell you how to do it. It does provide you access to the control systems that, as I mentioned before, you can put security controls in place to enable these capabilities, but it doesn't tell you how to tie it back to the business and create this resilience that I've been talking about. That's what the DVMS does. I kind of consider the DVMS the nuclear power pack for the NIST framework because it brings it to life and it extends its reach throughout the entire business. It actually gives the businesses an opportunity to look at cybersecurity and cybersecurity risk as a business opportunity versus a threat, even though it's still a threat. So to answer the question, people who go through the courses now, there's no program in place to require you to maintain that with CPUs or CPEs or whatever different organizations call them. We are going to build additional courses that will expand upon the knowledge base, specifically in the DVMS area. We have that incorporated in our NIST programs already, an introduction to the DVMS in the foundation book, and a more expanded version of that in the practitioner book. And then the thriving book itself goes into the detail of how to build the underpinning culture to support all this and all the other capabilities. We call culture the glue in that book. But there'll be some additional courses. We've also got some plans in the works to create a simulation, gamified simulation program that will allow people to see cyber resilience in action from the senior executive level all the way down to the regular employee. I think that will make it even more sticky, if you will, for people to really understand it and then want to be part of it. And then we've got some other platform work solutions in the works as well, which I can't reveal too much on right now. But to answer the question there's no refreshes required. It's really about being able to get through the courses, understand what you got to do, and then put a plan in place to go get it done.
That's a great note to finish on. So we'll start wrapping up there. So that's the last of the questions. And thank you everybody for the interaction and getting those questions in. Some really great questions there, and I don't think we tripped Rick up too much. So we're quite kind. What I would say is we have recorded the session as well, and everyone that's registered will receive a follow-up email from us once the recording is available on demand. So do look out for that in your inbox, and we'll include various links in there to the DVMS Institute and some of the stuff that we talked about during the session. So that just really leads me to say thank you very much everyone for attending. As I said before, thank you for the interaction and the questions. Thank you very much, Rick, for your insight today into the frameworks and everything else around that. And we hope to see you again on future sessions. And just a reminder to look out for that follow-up email. We'll get that out to you as soon as recording is available online. So thanks very much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day and the week ahead. Thanks very much.
Thank you.